Carter. Alderwoman Tyus.
Present.
Chairwoman Davis.
Present.
7 present. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Before us today is Board Bill 232. It was introduced at our last committee meeting. There was some understanding to have additional information forwarded for a better understanding of the bill and its intent. I believe that the committee members received a number of documents in the last week or so. One was a letter from the city manager of Berkeley.
I have these as well.
You also had,
And I have the one from Berkeley rescinding their support.
okay, and I also have,
Mayor Kinlock.
the Mayor Kinlock. You also
I'm
had some additional information from the North Park folks. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, every committee member had an opportunity to talk directly with one of the North Park representatives. And if you did not, please share that with me. That was my instruction, to make sure that they talk to each committee member, not just me. It's not about me. So,
You wanna know that now?
Yes.
beg pardon, sir.
I didn't talk to anyone.
You didn't talk, I remember he said he had called you
Alderman Moore,
about
can you pass
4 times.
Me either.
He didn't leave a message.
I got a
and,
nasty email that I was outraged about.
But you had communication, because you
To
all were going
threaten
back
me.
and forth.
To threaten me, yes.
Yeah.
I read all the
Alderman
emails.
Moore.
I read
Yes.
all the
That's
emails.
for, yes, that's for this.
That's why I went out there to Berkeley myself after that.
Thank you. Okay, so, so what we're going to do is, we're going to have an opportunity to just kind of do a brief overview of what was presented originally. Then we'll get into the additional things, and then we'll get into those who have signed up to speak. Okay? So, would you like to go forward and just give a brief overview of what the bill had, its intent originally?
Sure, I'm gonna have Rob Salarano, I'm Rhonda Hamid, the airport director. Rob Salarano is our manager of properties. So he's gonna give a brief overview, and he's also brought a larger map for you to see the area as well.
Good, thank you.
We're requesting the Board of Aldermen approval of 2.554 acres, sale to North Park Partners. The sale price is $150,000 payable to the city. St. Louis, the airport is reserving a perpetual and exclusive easement for glycol lines over the property. We have an active glycol tank just to the south of the property parcel, and we're retaining that glycol tank and a perpetual easement. Sale requires FAA release, Board of Aldermen approval, and a number of conditions proceeding to the closing. We respectfully request the Board of Aldermen approval of this sale. And I have the map here. There was some question, I wasn't able to point it out on the way the area was laid out. This is the proposed property for sale to North Park Partners. And this is where our glycol tank is, where we'll retain ownership. And we retain the perpetual easement of the glycol lines over the property.
And then the rest of the surrounding property today is all currently owned by North Park. So this 2.5 acres butts up to the property that they currently own.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Madam Chair, point of order.
Yeah.
Did the mayor have a chance to sign up?
Oh, yes.
Okay, okay.
I think we left off at the last committee meeting with a lot of questions, and maybe, we probably,
I went out there.
had a lot of concern about the farmers, number one. I think most people
This was a good line.
left with a clear understanding that the farmers would have an opportunity to continue to farm. But there was some question about what governmental body was going to be the oversight for the land. And whether or not that governmental body had been involved in this process and knew the intent and agreed with the intent. And so that's why we went to get all this additional information. I do want to ask that, respectfully, the first person I would like to hear from, even though I have all of the committee members here, who I'm sure have some additional questions and or comments, I do wanna hear from the mayor first,
Okay.
okay? So I'd like to ask, Mayor Hoskins to please come forward and, give us his, understanding of this.
Thank you, good morning.
Good morning.
To the chair,
Yes.
to the Transportation Committee. Let me first say that the city of Berkeley, understanding that all land that was purchased by the city of St. Louis that was not utilized for development would go back to the city of Berkeley. We were not aware that this parcel we are referring to was not a part of North Park. So there was miscommunication from our perspective that why would we give up 2.5 acres and according to the federal government, it's supposed to come back to us free. I understand that North Park has proposed $150,000, but the city of Berkeley does not understand that. And in this bill, North Park want to quick claim this to them and then say to us in 5 years, they will give it to the city of Berkeley. They don't have the right to this land. The city of Berkeley exclusively, and I'm here requesting that the Transportation Committee convey this land on a quick claim deed to the city of Berkeley. We can, in addition, provide space for these farmers. In addition, we can, we lost in the North Park area, Evans Lane Park, that's required by federal statute to be replaced. In this partial, we can replace not only the farmers, we can replace the park. So my request today is, the city of Berkeley is not supportive of 232. This bill quick claims the deed to North Park, not the city of Berkeley. And by right, I don't really think, and I might be wrong, that the city of St. Louis and this committee has the right to convey this to North Park, because mitigation initially was that any partial, because they initially started purchasing all the land east, then the airport decided to go west. All land that was not being utilized east was to go to the city of Berkeley. And to be truthful, I just found out about 5 days ago that North Park was trying to have you quit claim this.
Mayor, I understand what you said, and I am familiar with some of that, but it wasn't exactly like that.
Okay.
And so what I want to do is, and I thought we would have had that information, but it didn't come forward. I wanted to actually see the actual language that was produced during that process, and bring that before the committee. Now, I'm going to ask the airport director to come back to the seat so we can ask you questions as well. When we get information here, it is based on the laws that we believe that we have the right to institute,
Okay.
most especially when we're dealing with an agency that is so well tied to the federal laws as well. And so federal laws supersede us always,
Right.
just like the state laws supersede us. So one of the things I want to do is to hear, and I also will see it in writing, is to hear how the law, as you understand it, how we got to this process again. Because it was so much going on, I don't think all of us heard everything.
Sure.
And I'd like to hear it again.
Sure. All of the land that the airport owns, which is approximately 4,500, including the inside of our perimeter fence of the airport, as well as the surrounding land around, is owned by the city of St. Louis, by the airport. A good portion of that was bought originally with the noise program. We have no ordinance that we have found, and we have had our attorneys and everyone go back looking for the better part of the past 25 years, found anything that would return the land for no charge to any entity. So that doesn't exist in our opinion. We have researched, we have looked, we've talked to the attorneys who were there at the time, no one has any recollection of that, and there's no documents to support that. We are required under the FAA that if we have airport property, it must be for aeronautical use, or it must be for an approved non-aeronautical. So sometimes they will approve for a cargo building, because that brings in aeronautical value for cargo planes, although the building itself may not be aeronautical. The product that it produces is aeronautical. So everything that we do has to have FAA approval on it when we're talking about looking at portions of our land. I think we mentioned this last time, there had been for a number of years an improper use of the land where we had the farmers that just squatted on the land. And as we're getting more and more into developing our airport and then developing it with opportunities for large areas, we had to move those farmers off of that piece of land. I met with them several times this summer on the property that was ours and explaining to them that they don't have rights to be on that property. It's non-aeronautical use and farming is not an acceptable opportunity. I did tell them that we would look for some alternatives for them. North Park called upon us because they own, as you can see, the property around this, and they had been looking at an opportunity to be able to relocate these farmers at their expense. Again, the airport can't do that. It was never approved property to begin with. There was no lease on it. There was no revenue on it. It was non-aeronautical. So North Park found, they were looking for a site that would be about 10 acres that they could do this with. They also, and I think for those of you who may have spoke to Mr. Chapman is the gentleman that we've been working with. He's out of town, so he could not be here at this meeting today. I do know he did try to approach everyone to answer questions that they may have had. But what he looked at was where they could create gardens and a kind of a surrounding park to be able to offer to these farmers the opportunity to do their farming. So, again, I'm going by his words. Although the farmers did assign to us, they looked at some various lands, and this was a piece of the land that they liked. They currently have some people doing farming up near our glycol tanks, not on airport property, and they like that parcel of land. So the 2.5 acres that they asked us to buy, we had which were required by the federal government, we had an appraisal on. It was actually valued just a little bit under than 150. So we said to them, the 2.5 acres, which to the airport, because of the glycol tank and because of the surrounding property not being ours, has no value to the airport in terms of future development, or is it a piece it's just 2.5 acres that butts up to theirs. So we agreed that we would sell it to them pending obviously all the legislative process. And then they in turn would work with the farmers to allow them to relocate free of charge and build their farms there. So that's what we have brought forward. Again, this piece of property cannot be given to the city of Berkeley. There's no documents that would indicate that. We've done that research, Mayor, so I'm not familiar with what you may have that would be that, but we've done our research, and according to the federal government, we cannot sell land to be used, our airport property, we cannot have tenants on it. I shouldn't say sell, we cannot have tenants on it that is non-aeronautical use. So the ability for North Park to be able to create this property for the farmers to do their work, they can do it with or without our 2.5 acres. They can take the existing land that they have and just create a smaller plot for them, which I think is what they would do. This would be to be able to provide them a larger area, correct, so that all the farmers could be accommodated.
Could I respond?
Yes, sir. I'm going to ask one thing very quickly.
Okay.
And so this 2.5 would allow the farmers to have ample space.
Right.
And also, as I understood it from everything that we've read, there is also an opportunity for Berkeley to create some park space for their community as well.
That is correct. That deal was not with the airport.
Oh, I know
Obviously,
it
that's
wasn't.
with North
No.
Park. But the North Park intention, to my understanding, and they had been working with the city manager. Again, this piece of property they can create without that, it's just gonna be a smaller parcel that they have, but that they had been looking at turning some of that surrounding property into the park.
I do, okay, I'm sorry, Mayor, go right ahead.
Let me first state that, in the city of Berkeley, only the council, not the city
Absolutely.
manager, can make decisions
Absolutely.
at this
Understand.
magnitude. So for
Absolutely.
them interacting with the city manager was in an error. Second, North Park owes the city of Berkeley over $400,000. So to say that the city of Berkeley cannot afford $150,000 and they owe us $400,000 is a mistake. If they paid us and the value of this land was $150,000, we would purchase it. And we do not want to be in a position that in 5 years, that North Park determines, wake up one day and say, get off of that land, that's our land. See, when the Express Scripts was developed, they took Evans Lane from us. At the time, everybody in the city of Berkeley, and we have administrative change, indicated that North Park will replace that park. They have not up to date replaced that. And they trying to, in lieu of replacing that park, say, we want you to quick claim this to us, and at our will, we will give it to Berkeley in 5 years. That's not acceptable. In addition, let me add this. There's a parking lot in the city of Berkeley on Springdale that the city of St. Louis abandoned.
That's not true. We own
There's
it.
nothing functioning on that but grass growing in the parking lot. I live in Berkeley, okay? Nothing functions on that. Last summer, we had a storm and the city of St. Louis allowed us to put the branches over there. Nothing is functioning over there. And today, we're requesting that parking lot be returned back to the city of Berkeley also.
We do have a lease on that parking lot with an individual that temporarily parks cars there. We get $1 per day per car when the individual parks there. In the past, it has brought us upwards of $400,000 a year. We expect there to be cars there in the coming 30 to 60 days. We have an approved process for that. What it is normally is it's an individual that large corporations contract with him as their new vehicles come on for sale in the year, and in the interim, they need a place to park. So we've had that in the past, and we just renewed that. We'd have another one that I shouldn't say it's a renewal, it's a new contract with that individual to park the vehicles. We've also in the past had other opportunities for the county to lease that space to be able to do driving instructions there. So it's not,
Well,
you are
I've
correct
been
in that
instructed
the-
my Public Works Department to cite you for in violation of your codes of the condition of that
That's exactly what I
parking
would
space.
do.
Okay, we haven't seen those yet. I mean, it's
It-
well lit and
It's coming.
Okay.
Because you, I don't know if you've been over there lately.
I have. I was there
It's in
this week.
deplorable conditions, and that's not acceptable.
Mr. Mayor, so what you are suggesting to this committee is that the city of Berkeley would prefer to have a direct transfer of the property to your government entity
That's correct.
with no cost.
We will abide by the 150 if that's the law.
That's
But
where I'm going next.
when I was involved in the 70s and 80s,
Mhm.
when all these things were occurring,
That's right.
there was some language in reference to if this wasn't utilized for airport expansion, it would be returned back to the city, no cost. And we need to research that and see if we can find that information. And if not, Berkeley is willing to pay the 150 as soon as, in conjunction with North Park paying us our $400,000 that they indicated they weren't in a
That's
position to
not
pay.
before us.
Right.
I know,
Okay.
I know.
Okay,
I
that's
know.
not before
But
us.
my understanding, they communicated to this committee that the city of Berkeley is not in a position to pay the 150. That's not true.
Well, I
We're in a
didn't hear
position to
that.
pay the 150 without them paying us
I
our
didn't hear that.
I
400,000.
did.
Because
I asked
we
the
all
question.
know that the city of Berkeley has done a miraculous job of improving that community.
Okay.
All the additional companies that have come there,
Mhm.
the expansion, part of your property with UMSL campus, and
Yeah.
a number of other things, puts Berkeley in a very stable condition. So
Appreciate that.
even if it was said my man couldn't hear,
You couldn't
okay?
hear?
Cause I know better.
Well, I just wanna
Okay.
put the committee, at rest that we're in a position if
Absolutely.
we have to purchase. I
Absolutely.
think we have the right for first claim. And we
Now-
want to exercise that.
Now, that's something else we need to determine, how
Okay.
that process would work.
Okay,
Okay, because at the end of the day, I don't want this committee, as long as I'm sitting in this chair, to be in a position where we are creating unnecessary chaos within the region.
okay,
We want to help when we can help. We want to be good stewards of the process and operations of the airport as it is under our jurisdiction, but we want to do that in an informative
mhm.
and peaceful way.
Mr.
So
Madam
what I'd like to
Chairman?
do is to ask you to just give me a moment
Okay,
to go down a path.
okay, okay, no problem.
And, let's see where we're going, okay?
And just, let's make one last statement.
Yes, sir.
I really do not understand why North Park has an opposition to the city of Berkeley owning that piece of partial, and no one's gonna develop it according.
Well, you know, honestly speaking, I never heard that either.
I don't think they do.
And even in my conversation with him, I didn't hear that.
Okay,
This simply was something that came about. This was the process that came about.
okay,
And I know, because I used to do consulting work for Berkeley years ago. We
I
always
guess
went to the city
you
manager.
obviously did a good job.
Yeah, we always went to the city manager.
It doesn't
And
fu-
those things that needed to go to
Right.
council went to council.
Right,
But we know that the city manager also has a lot of, open responsibility,
That's correct.
especially under a certain dollar amount and all that. But in any event, what I wanted to do was to figure out if we can have an understanding of how the path could be okay for everybody.
okay,
Okay, that's what I'd like to do.
I appreciate
This
that.
is not about we're trying to take anybody's side or anything like that. Because for me, the number one concern I have at this moment
Okay.
is about the farmers.
Mhm.
Because I know a lot of those people. Some of them sell their wares over here at that place on Lafayette, that store.
Mm-hmm,
A lot of them, that's their total livelihood.
mhm.
So I'm not concerned about all of our wheels and how we want to do our stuff. What I'm concerned about is how we make sure we expedite this where everybody's happy, and most especially, they have an opportunity
No.
to move forward in a timely manner.
Now, you know they're moving the farmers out of Kinlock, not Berkeley.
I do know that
Okay,
part. I do
so
know that
they
part
trying
as
to
well.
make a replacement
Yeah.
in Berkeley, that they did something in Kinlock, they could have moved them somewhere in Kinlock.
But remember now, when the farmers looked at different parcels, that's the one they chose.
Okay,
North Park didn't choose that.
I got you.
North
Okay.
Park did not choose that. So, that's why I said I'm concerned about them.
Okay, I'm concerned
Yeah.
also.
Yeah, I'm
And I
concerned
wanna
about
make
them.
an agreement that
Right.
they're satisfied also.
Right, they chose that
But
parcel.
at the same time, I wanna make sure that this land that's
Right.
in Berkeley,
Right.
that does not belong to North Park,
Mhm, mhm.
that goes to Berkeley. And unfortunately, Berkeley is coming late into the negotiations. We wasn't aware there was any land up there still open. Until, I wasn't aware until 2 weeks ago, or maybe a week ago, that we thought all the land up there was North Park.
Okay, okay. Well, I see there was a lot of confusion
Mhm.
and probably the opportunity to have clear process may not have taken place as you would most especially want
Okay.
it for your community. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask one more question of the airport director, and then we'll go to the committee members for questions only. I'm not gonna allow a lot of comments. I'm gonna only deal with questions, and we're gonna do a time limit, because we need to get back around to make sure that when we leave this room today, we have a good understanding of where we're going forward,
Okay,
okay?
appreciate that.
So I want to get back to you and ask, I read, because that was another question that we had a concern about, but I see you found the state listing for North Park Partners LLC.
Right, they were incorporated in 2004.
Okay, all right. So now that's clear, because I think it was a misunderstanding that maybe they weren't even an appropriate entity to be even working in this deal. So now we got that cleared up. And my last thing is,
Point of order.
yes, ma'am.
They sent me that it was, I didn't get the actual document and it's still not showing up on the state of Missouri.
Well, here's a copy of
Thank
it
you.
attached
I'll
to
wait
it.
till afterwards,
okay.
thank you.
All right.
It's in your packet, Ms.
Yeah.
Alderwoman.
So what we want to do is, we want to ask questions for more clarity for the committee members, and then we will summarize and come to a conclusion of where we need to be, whether that is to take a vote here, whether it is to amend this bill, or whether we will go back and start the process all over again. And most especially, if we go back to start the process over again, we need to have something in a protective manner in place so that the farmers can move forward and be able to, do their process for planting and everything timely. So, I'd like to start with the questioning now.
May I
Go
make
right
one
ahead.
comment? Just to the first right of refusal, we have researched, there is no first right of refusals on the books for any of our property to be able to be sold to either City of Berkeley or Kinloch, so we were unable to find any document that had a first right of refusal. Normally with the FAA, that's not prohibited normally, so we are not aware of any document that has a first right of refusal, and we have researched through everything that we could find. The second piece I would say is that Berkeley has been a great partner to the airport, and, they are a good neighbor to ours, and we certainly want to be a good neighbor to them as well. So the intent was not to not include Berkeley in that, it was that they came to us for this process. They being North Park came to us. Again, it's a small sliver of land that has no real value to us, even though we did the fair market assessment and they're willing to pay that. The purpose was to relocate the farmers, not to try and leave Berkeley out of it there or to try and circumvent that area. So I don't think it really does make much of a difference to the airport to whom that land, whether that's sold to the City of Berkeley or whether it's sold, but it does have to get the fair market value.
Yeah, and for those that are interested, if you want to Google the rules and everything for FFA under the Department of Transportation, you will find that you can't do that with federal land. You can't do it. I did, so I know that part. So we can Google
can't
that
do it.
right now.
You can't do
So,
what was that?
But it
I'm sorry.
First right of refusal.
Okay.
Right.
Yes, sir. And so I'd like to start with the questioning now, please. Alderman Bosley.
Who was the original owner of the land?
You make, of this 2.5 acres,
Yeah,
I assume
before
Berkeley was.
I'm not sure about Berkeley, there were a lot of parcels involved in the one parcel we're selling. So it could have been up to 16 different owners in there, 'cause this is also, the way this was cut up, there was quite a few parcels before.
Okay, what subdivision was that, Kinloch, Berkeley, or what?
I believe it's always been Berkeley, sir, but I'm not positive.
Yeah, I don't think that was, it's not part of the Kinloch. Now, whether there was another entity adjacent to Berkeley that may have had a sliver of it, but it was not in Kinloch, sir.
Has there been any conversation with the elected officials in the area where this is located?
None.
Not that I had, no, sir.
None.
No. Shouldn't there have been?
I would think so. I would think that the airport should have contacted elected officials instead of,
Before
City
they
manager.
even cut this
Yeah.
far?
Well, I guess from a standpoint of, we own the land, they approached us about buying the 2.5 acres, and any other land sales that we have, we would not approach the elected officials in those properties wherever it sits. It's our land to sell. They asked us to sell that 2.5 parcels to them. They gave us what they were trying to do with it. They knew about the farmers, obviously, and they were trying to do the location. But in our normal course of the day, if we have a piece of property that we're selling, we would not go to the elected officials. If you're talking about, it would be who the person is trying to buy that property.
I'm not clear on that. Why would they go to someone that's not authorized? Because the city of Berkeley has to pass some ordinance to approve the sale of any land. So eventually, the approval and the authorization
own the
come from
You
the
don't own
board.
the land,
You
so-
don't own the land.
It's our land.
It's
Well,
just like
but
any
it
other
appears
real
that
estate
here,
deal.
that the airport is very supportive of North Park, and I don't know why, they should be neutral.
But
From what the
they
conversation
own-
I've heard since
Mr. Mayor,
I've
they
been here.
own the land, so it would be just like any other real estate.
I understand they
deal.
on the lane, but it appears that they are being slanted towards North Park instead of the city of Berkeley purchasing the land.
No, I don't see it that way. I see just like if somebody walked up to me and said, I wanna buy your car.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't ask my neighbor or the person that owned where I park my car or anything,
But I doubt
their
if a car,
opinion.
I doubt if a car would be the ownership or be in the city of
Well,
Berkeley.
even a house, even your house, you don't have to ask anybody else to sell your house, because you own your house.
I agree.
And
That's
with
how
all-
real estate deals work.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Okay.
And with all due respect, you know, our sole purpose in looking to sell this original land was to accommodate the farmers. We had no other interest in North Park. We had no allegiance. We had no partnership with North Park. Our pure goal in this was for them, was to try to accommodate the farmers. So I,
So
you know.
what I don't understand is, if they wanted to accommodate the farmers, when we had to interact with North Park, they were not concerned at the time, because we were being pressured by the state to replace, an area for Evans Lane. We went to North Park, and North Park refused us and said, they didn't make an agreement way back when they purchased all this land to allocate an area for the farmers. Now, all of a sudden, they are the cheerleaders for the farmers. They were, 6 months ago, they were not.
Well, that, honestly speaking, that's not our business either, okay?
Okay.
So,
Well, that's why they're supporting
I
that.
honestly have a real problem when people don't stay in their lanes.
Okay,
So, that's
Okay.
not our issue.
okay,
Our issue is to deal with whether or not the airport has the right to sell this land to North Park.
okay,
That's
gotcha.
the only thing before us at this moment.
Okay, good enough.
We can't get into the political things, other political things that are going on. That's not our role.
Okay.
Mr. Bosnia,
Yeah,
do
well,
you
who
have
originally
another?
owned the land
At the end of the
before the
day,
airport expanded?
it doesn't matter because the airport owns it now.
Well, they own it now, but you should, first rights of refusal.
There's
should
no
go
such
back.
thing
There
as
is no
that.
such thing.
There's no such thing as
We've
that.
checked, Alderman, there is no first right of refusal.
No.
There is no document with the airport that gives first right of refusal on land that we own to an
Well, it
entity.
doesn't matter. The point is, you acquired the land from some entity. And that entity, if it is a municipality in the state of Missouri, should have first rights of refusal.
They do not, there is.
I know they don't, I hear that.
Okay,
But why don't they have first rights of refusal?
I can't answer that, sir.
If we don't have a law, sir, there's no answer for her. Because the only thing she can do as airport director is follow the laws that are on the books. She
But we're not
doesn't
talking
have
about
any
the law
other
now. What
tools.
we're talking about was fair and not fair. Now, originally, when that airport started expanding, I used to ride my bicycle out there, and it was a little bitty thing. Now, by God, it's almost as, I would say it's bigger than the city of Kenlock by itself. I think so.
I would say.
Oh, okay. So now, here you're getting ready to sell some of the land that you have acquired earlier, and I think those entities where you bought the land, got the land, or acquired the land, should have first rights of refusal.
I'm sure that a lot of us wish that was the case, but that would just be like if we talked about the arch downtown. All that land was purchased from hundreds of different people. And so if for some reason, and as we are doing currently, we are changing the grounds down there, and some different people are part of that. But we can't go back to everybody who owned land back through the years and give them first right of refusal to get the land back.
What municipality originally owned this land? Was it Kenlock, Berkeley?
I don't think it was owned by a municipality, it was
No,
probably
sir, it was
residential.
individuals that they bought it from. You remember?
What
You remember?
municipality was it?
It's probably
Now,
No,
like
it
in
was
the
not
city of
Kinlock,
Summerfield.
I can tell you, it was not Kinlock.
But Mr. Alderman, that land was bought from individuals. Remember how all that land was purchased and it was a big uproar? Some people thought that they were being shortchanged on their purchase price, all kinds of things. So it was individuals that the land was bought from, not from a government body. It was individuals.
I know,
What
but it
town?
was in a municipality.
Would you like for the city of St. Louis to get in the middle of whether or not you sold your land and/or?
No, but the city of St. Louis should be involved in the fact that here I have a property located in the city of St. Louis and I'm getting ready to sell it to Kenlock. They certainly need to be involved in that
Why would they?
because It's the city of St. Louis.
No, sir, you wouldn't like that. I know I wouldn't.
I think I would.
And I tell you, mind your business, but
I
I'm sure you
just
have
do-
you have some additional
The city
questions,
bought the land.
Mr. Alderman.
The city bought the land, so I got the ordinance right here. The
Okay.
city
Alright.
actually purchased the land from, and then they set up the airport commission as a not-for-profit. I went and pulled the ordinances.
Yeah.
So that's why the city's in the middle of it, cause we had all the land before the airport did.
Yeah.
Mr. Boswell,
You're
did you have
correct,
Mr.
Mr. Boswell.
Excuse me, did you
Okay,
have some more
well,
questions?
on the next question, has there been some conversation with the city of Kinloch?
Yes, there's a letter of support from the mayor in there, if
Oh,
you'd like
in
to read
here.
it. Yes, sir, in your packet,
Okay.
the number 2 page is the
Wow.
support from the mayor of Kinloch.
Okay, well, you talked to him, so he seems to be in support of us. Who am I to raise a question I don't let that?
Yeah.
Because it's not in Kinloch. They
Alderman
supported the
Boswell.
city. It's in Berkeley.
Alderman Boswell, did you have some more questions?
No,
All
not
right.
yet.
All right, sir, thank you. Alderman Ortman.
The farmers now, they're not there anymore, they've been
They are
relocated.
not, they're
So we're no
nowhere
longer
right
in
now.
violation.
We're no longer in violation of our FAA ordinances, that is correct. We allowed them to finish the fall crop that they had, and they did that. And, so they're looking for a new home, and they're looking to try to start planting or getting the ground ready in March, hopefully for our planting season. But right now, they have nowhere to go, that is correct.
But that's not true. They're currently on this land.
No, on our land, they're not. sir.
Currently on this land. We drove up there and they farming this
I
land
went out there
as we
Friday.
speak,
I was out there Friday.
as we speak.
The plots were vacated at the end of the fall. We took down the small structure that had been erected. That was taken down in October, I believe. So they are not on the property, as far as inhabiting the property or farming. The
Which
gardens
He
were,
says they're farming on
They're
the
heading
land.
on property.
they
Which
were
property?
until the fall, sir, which was squatters' rights. They had no lease with the airport, and it's an illegal use of our property.
Let me do a point
Is
of
there
order, I think I have
somebody
the
using the
floor.
land as we speak right now,
As we
yes or
speak
no?
today.
Alderman?
Point of
Alderman
Yeah.
Boswell.
I'm sorry.
I have the floor.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
So, can I ask a question here?
yeah.
And there's no hurry timeline on this? That's my second question.
No hurry, I'm sorry, I'm not sure. I
This doesn't have to be done now.
Well, if you, for the airport, it really does not, but I think if you're looking at being able to, for them to be able to accommodate the farmers, the farmers will not be able to plant their spring gardens on our property. That property is no longer available.
No, I kinda got that, and here's kinda where I'm going, because initially, from what I understand, and I missed the first meeting, so I wasn't here at that time, you know, that this all started out to accommodate the farmers. You know, so, cause they're gonna be relocated, so they've gotta move. And if this isn't done, and this is the point I'm getting at, is it a now thing or what? You know, if this isn't done one way or another, the farmers don't have any place to go, or did North Park already relocate them? Cause I thought I heard somebody say that they chose another place that was offered, you know, to be able to go and farm.
This was their first choice of places to be relocated to. As far as the airport relocating them, we have nowhere for them to go. North Park that adjoins this 2.5 small sliver of airport land that we were going to sell to them. They have acreage around it. They could give them whatever acreage they have, is my understanding, to be able to put those gardens in. The 2.5 acres was to accommodate all of them, so a large enough area where they could accommodate all of them. So would they still do it without our 2.5 acres? I don't know the answer to that. I think that's a question for North Park. But for the airport, there's nowhere that we would accommodate them because it's not a proper use of airport property.
No, I know, it's not our
Okay.
responsibility
I
either,
know.
so. And then, kind of what I would like to see, you know, is, and Mayor, I understand what you're saying, but, I think the point is where's the papers, you know, the paperwork back in the 70s or whenever it would be done. I know we have a really good researcher here at the table too, you know, where it might possibly say that it would go back to the city, but, you know, when the airport comes in, and they come in, you know, based on everything that we do is got to be approved by the feds, you know, and we're the elected officials that get notified, it comes through the Board of Aldermen. So, you know, that's why we're at the table now. Now, I don't know what's gonna happen today, one way or the other, but, whether we do this or not, the farmers aren't gonna be on this land. So, that's all I have.
I'd just like to respond by saying, you know, I've been a farmer. And if they're not farming now, we're not sitting here. Today, they are farming on that site.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Norman and John?
I'm done.
Okay, Alderman Moore.
Mr. Mayor, which site are they farming on?
The site we were talking in reference to is 2.5.
The one that they're
Oh,
being
that one.
evicted from or the one that they're moving to?
They're farming on the one they're moving to,
Oh, that's good.
not the one in Kidlock, the one
But
that.
that's also airport land, and how can they move there? Excuse me.
They've moved to a land that is in question in reference to making these changes. Quick claiming it to North Park.
And who owns that land?
Now,
Yeah.
airport, city of St. Louis.
But I'm sorry, Alderman, go ahead.
Thank you.
Then that's recently occurred, and if so, then we will have to evict them from that land, which is the only thing I can do.
They've been there 2-3 months, go ahead.
Where is North Park? Where is the representative of North Park? Someone here from North Park today?
No, Mr. Chapman was not here, he's out of town,
Is he the
I
only one
didn't
that can
schedule-
speak for North Park?
he is
I mean,
generally
they need to
involved
have a
in the
representative here.
meetings.
I don't know why they don't have a
Maybe they can
representative here. We
ask
talking
Paul.
about
He
North
would have been
Park.
here had he not been out of town. He wasn't-
Someone need to be here from North Park.
I can get him on the phone.
And that won't do me any good. I wanna see his face. And do we know what North Park is gonna do with that land?
The two
Besides
point
build a
five acres,
hotel and all the other stuff that they, on that nice piece of land that we can see the farmers. It's so visible, it's amazing how visible it is. But do we know what North Park is gonna do with the land?
it's the 2.5 acres.
Mhm.
They have assured us that it will be turned into the farming plots for the farmers.
No, the land that you evicting the farmers from. What are they gonna do with that land? Where the farmers are now, where they've been evicted from, the what you see on 170.
That is not going to be developed, it's just it's going to be an easement to get into the property that they have behind it for whatever, I don't know what development they have, sir, that's going behind that, but there will not be development on that land. There will be an easement that goes through that land that gets to a development, but I'm not part of North Park, so I don't know what they're developing.
They're developing a Snooks warehouse there,
Or what?
a Snooks warehouse. That's why the farmers were removed.
Something is coming because otherwise, if they're not gonna do anything with the land, why didn't they just leave the farmers alone?
Well, that was not their land, sir, that was our land, so the farmers were squatted on illegal property that was an illegal use of airport land.
So when North Park approached you, they didn't ask you, they didn't say what they were gonna do with it. They just needed the land for an easement, right?
Right, to be able, there's a building development, and maybe the mayor knows better than I do, that will be behind that, so there is an easement that will go through it to get to the development behind it, yes, sir.
So we need to, I think the next thing is the mayor is adamant about the fact that, we got first rights of refusal. There's somewhere in some document that says that you have first rights of refusal. We
That's
need
my
to find-
position. We just
We
need
need
to
to find
research.
that. Did North Park or the airport, were they ever willing or asked Berkeley to purchase the land before they did North Park? I mean, if you said to North Park came to you, said they wanna buy that land, was Berkeley offered the same deal?
Berkeley did not come to us and ask us to buy it, and no, we did not reach out. We normally would not have that interaction. If we've got airport property and we have someone who's asked us to purchase it, we would not deal with another entity and go to them to see if they want it. We have no requirement for a first right of refusal. So when North Park asked us about this 2.5 acres, did the airport go to, no, because we would have no requirement to, sir.
That plot of land that you had, 2-point-some acres, who did it belong to?
The airport,
Who did you buy it from?
I don't know, that was the same question when
City
Mr.
of
That's
Bosley
what, I
asked.
mean, why we don't know that?
City of St. Louis. We bought it.
There's, when all the land around the airport was purchased, there was multiple entities that it was purchased from.
I know individuals, but that was a town that them individuals lived in. What town did those individuals that sold their land live in? What town did they live in? They lived somewhere, they didn't live
It's
in.
2.5 acres, I don't know, I don't
They lived in
understand.
Berkeley.
I'm assuming
It
it
was
was
in
in Berkeley,
Berkeley,
but I'm not going to answer that with 100% certainty.
I don't know why that's so hard for us to get to. That's your question, Freeman. It was Berkeley. Was other land besides the land that's been decided on offered to the farmers besides the spot that they got now? Did they offer them something in Berkeley or in Kinloch? Did they have a choice of land that they could squat on,
Well, the airport offered them no
Perform on-
choice of land because we do not allow squatters on airport property. So there was no land that we offered them, sir. We did, in an effort to work with them, and when I had met with them several times this summer and advised them that once this crop was finished, they would have to be off the property, we asked them, North Park has come to us trying to accommodate you all. Do you have some preferences? Where their number one preference was to go into this area surrounding that we're selling the 2.5.
but the farmers don't own the land.
No, sir, they do not.
North Park gonna own the land.
They would if this sale is completed. They own the property around it today, and if this sale is completed, they would own this 2.5 acres as well, yes, sir.
So they're just being shuffled from one place to the other, like wildebeest, like in the community. When I call the police on the gang members, they move them from Aldine to Cobria, and then the next day they go back to Aldine, so they're just wandering back and forth like the wildebeest. We never have anywhere permanent for them to go and no solutions of how to solve their problems. Yes, Madam Chairman, I'm coming along.
Alderman, could I just say
Yes,
one
sir.
thing? The airport indicated that they don't allow squatters. For over 30 years, they've allowed squatters on the land they moved from Kinloch.
They did, it was illegal.
They said it's illegal, but they said they don't allow, so why didn't they move them then if it was illegal? They've allowed them to function for over 30 years in that area as squatters.
Yeah, so that is a good question as to why now we're not allowing squatters. We would allow them to, I didn't know they were squatting, I thought they owned the land all the time.
No, sir, they did not.
So did this new ordinance, this squatting ordinance just come up, or how did we come
No,
up?
the FAA has always had a prohibition. I can only speak for the 5 years that I've been there.
Mhm.
When it came to my attention, I started working on it. I am the airport director and I'm held on FAA guidelines, and I'm in violation of the FAA guidelines right now. And if I were to allow that to continue, I could jeopardize any of our FAA federal funding. And as the airport director, I find that irresponsible.
So they've been there 30 years, and I understand you protecting your domain, but look like we ought to be able to do some kind of retroactive violation on the airport for allowing this to happen. If this was an ordinance that needed to be enforced, and if this ordinance need to be enforced by no squatters, then we really need to go back and get this thing figured out. This is a mess, and Madam Chairman, I know you said questions only, but I'm gonna give my opinion. I think this is North Park finishing off Kinloch, doing their thing, getting the last piece of land so they can profit and build on the land, and they've now completely gotten rid of Kinloch, which was a town that never transitioned from white to black, but was always black, and it has just been a personal genocide, destruction of Kinloch, and this is the final straw in the whatever, final feather in the cap.
But
But
sir,
this
this
is,
land
this
is not
is
in
absolutely horrible.
Alderman
Thank
Moore,
you.
is that it?
That's it.
Okay, just for clarification, this parcel is in Berkeley, not Kinloch. Alderman Bacall had to.
But then I have another question if that's the case.
Alderman Cohen.
I just want to, I guess, throw this out there for the record. I think that this is, if the city of Berkeley is willing to pay the $150,000, I would support we sell this to the city of Berkeley for $150,000. I would not support just giving this back to the city of Berkeley based off of everything that I've heard and, the regulations that the airport has to adhere to, so, if the city of Berkeley does have the $150,000 and, they're able to pay for it, then I don't see any reason why we shouldn't do that. as a, I guess, instrument of good faith and adhering to kind of the spirit of, I think, what all of us are, you know, trying to talk about here in terms of fairness and equity. You know, I understand though through the process, it seems as though North Park, you know, was the first to approach the airport about this.
That's correct.
So I am a little saddened that they are not here, but I did get the email that they had sent out, you know, to the committee members, inviting us to ask them questions. It's always nice to have them at, you know, the public hearings as well, so that we can have them on record. So currently, you know, the farmers are not using the land in Kinloch, correct?
That's correct.
Which is owned by the airport.
Yes,
The land is in Kinloch, but it's owned by the airport, and the
Right.
farmers are no longer squatting
they're
on
not
it.
squatting on that property, that's correct.
They are now relocated to the North Park 8 acres, not the full.
I'm not aware
10.
that they've been relocated to the
Okay.
North Park 8 acres. The plan is to relocate them. I'm unaware that they've relocated to any of that property, but I haven't been up there in probably 3 months to
Okay.
where our glycol tank sits and this property is, so they were not on any of our property at the time.
Okay.
I can't speak to.
So, Mr.
We
Mayor,
were,
I
we
mean,
were up there last week and this weekend. In fact, as late as yesterday.
and
They are
you know,
up there now.
North Park owns the 8 acres that are surrounding
Surrounding
this
it,
2.5.
yes, that's correct.
So
Okay.
they're definitely on the 8 acres that North Park has allotted. Are you familiar with whether or not they're on that 2.5 acres roughly that the city owns through the airport?
I'm not surely in reference to the breakdown. I
Yeah.
do know they moved them from Kinloch to Berkeley, and I don't know what part, maybe, what map?
Oh, sure, sure. This is the 2.5 acres that we're talking about. All of this is owned by North Park today, so it's far more than 8 acres that they have in this area. But they wanted to do this plot, which would equate to about 10 acres around here, to offer as the gardens.
And
So
and sorry to interrupt,
Uh-huh.
but so we would still own the acreage south.
There is a glycol tank that takes up that entire acreage there, so
So
it's
we would
it's a
maintain-
fairly large structure.
We would maintain our ownership of that, and then
Correct.
the easement of the pipeline through this 2.5 acres.
That is correct.
On the outside of that.
Okay, so,
Are you saying the garden is here?
correct.
The
So that would
garden
not
is
be
here.
on our
They
property.
moved from Kinloch to here
Okay,
in Berkeley.
okay, so they're currently not squatting on.
Yes,
the-
it's squatting here.
Well, that's
But
not my
but that's the
property.
North Park
It's not
property.
airport
That's
property.
that's
That's
the
North
North Park
Yes.
property.
Yes,
Okay.
they're already on North Park property.
Okay. So we, I was under the impression, looking at the maps that were provided last week, that we would be giving up all of the property that we owned in that area
No, just
to
this
North Park, but we're just giving up that little red triangle area.
Correct.
Okay, so I guess my question is at this juncture, given the conversations that are going on around the table at this point, you know, I realize that, you know, some of the farmers, you know, ideally we would have 10 acres for the farmers, because that's what they've been utilizing in Kinloch. So, and that if they don't get the 2.5, you know, they're going to be a couple short, you know, so there's going to be some, you know, adverse impact to some of the farmers. But they'll still be able, 80% of those farmers will still be able to have the crops that they would otherwise for the spring planting. So is there, to me, it seems as though, I know timing might be a little off because we're about to go down for, you know, legislative recess. But is there a way that we would be able to still negotiate with the city of Berkeley, you know, in good faith on the $150,000 and then come back in April, you know, with another board bill, that would allow them to move forward with the purchase of the land? I mean, do you see that as a possibility?
You know, I guess, from the airport's perspective, you know, I guess as long as we're paid for the land, that would be fine. I do think that, you know, especially if they're already farming on some of that, I'm gonna have to continue to have someone monitored on a daily basis so we don't get to where we have squatters on our property again
Right.
and then have to deal with that, because that is an issue for us, so we'll have to watch that very closely. And if they start encroaching on that, then we're gonna be the big bad elephant in the room again, because we're gonna have to move them off of that if the property is still ours.
I'm just thinking that it's 2 months worth of work, you know, and we can also let them know that in 2 months, the city of Berkeley will allow them to use that land.
I mean, we'd have to,
Um,
we've been working with the FAA on the purchase of this, we'd have to go back and work through that process with a different entity, not to say we couldn't do that.
mhm,
We never have the final say-so on that, but we could do that.
okay.
You know, again, we'd have to have the revenue obviously from it.
And Mr. Mayor,
We're willing to pay a fair market value
is
of that
that
land, yeah.
not even contingent upon the 400,000 that
Oh, no.
North Star?
no.
But they should pay 'em back, so
I'm
I
just
don't
trying,
know.
I'm trying to figure out
How you
how
purchasing and
our
you're not
North
paying
Park is
people
in a
money.
position
Right.
to purchase, and they indicated to us they weren't in a position, and I think they're paying us $10,000 a month or something like that. Yeah, they're not in a position to pay 150, unless they're misleading us.
Alderman Bazey will loan it to him.
Let me get closer to him.
So I borrowed money from Alderwoman from time.
You got it.
I still have my
Bank
original
or
dollar,
something.
so you will be in trouble.
Well,
I'm the cheap one in my family.
We gotta get it figured
with
out.
respect to the chairwoman's, you know, call for questions and not comments, I'm finished with my questioning, but I would like to just close out that I would support us relooking at just, you know, selling this back to the city of Berkeley, you know, for the 150. It sounds like it's a, you know, reasonable thing. I know it would put a little bit of, you know, undue strain on the airport for 2 or 3 months while we're working through the negotiations and all of that, but it does sound as though that's probably the most reasonable approach at this juncture.
Okay, are you done, sir?
I am, thank you, madam.
Alderwoman Tyus. Oh, I'm so sorry.
But see, I moved out.
I looked
But I
down.
moved.
I'm sorry.
No, you were just ready for her question.
I'm just moved on. I like
No,
being
you know
last,
what, though?
actually.
Shane, actually, Shane, you just cleared up, basically, you know, the whole situation for me. Because I didn't make the last meeting, either, and so, I have a little more understanding of what's going on, because at first it was a little, confusing on who owned the land and now who owned it and why it was given up, but I understand a lot more now, so I'm waiting for Alderwoman Tyus' questions. So I'm deferring to her.
Thank you, sir. Alderwoman Tyus.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. First of all, I did want to say that I took the chance to go out last Friday because I wanted to see myself, and I want to thank the city manager because he drove me around. That was an eye-opener. I hadn't been out to this place in a long time. I actually went out the last time when we were doing some of this, okay? And to see the devastation in the community breaks my heart, both in Berkeley and in Kinloch. One of the first questions I have to ask you is that normally when people sell property, they use a general warranty deed. Why are the city using a quitclaim deed to try to transfer this property versus a warranty deed?
I can get Mario on the phone and,
I don't know the legal answer for that.
I can tell you why people do that. They use a quitclaim deed because I can quitclaim City Hall to you. Because a quitclaim deed says I sell you all that I have to sell, and if I don't have anything to sell you, I have not fooled you, and you cannot sue me. When you do a general warranty deed, you are backing up that you have the right to sell this property in the first place. Whenever I see a city using a quitclaim deed, that raises my antennas. I do real estate. I own real estate. I've been doing development for a long time. So that the city is using a quitclaim deed tells me somebody somewhere has some reservations about how they selling this property, and how they're protecting the city is by not doing it with a general warranty deed.
as a response to that, as the airport director, I can assure you that I would not enter into any agreement that would jeopardize anything at the airport or that would violate any federal law, so.
But that doesn't jeopardize it. That's the whole point of a quitclaim deed. It doesn't. That's my point to you. That's exactly how you can do that. You can have a quitclaim deed, not a warranty deed. My next question is when I raised all these questions last time, and I was under the impression that they were going to bring some good farmers in, especially after that threatening email I got from Mr. Chapman, so I wanna know where the farmers are, cause he was gonna give them my number, and I wanted to personally give him my number, 'cause I know he didn't know who he was sending that email to, but where are the farmers, so they can come, or squatters, or whatever they are, what happened to them?
Well, I was notified 2 days ago that this meeting existed, and
Okay,
I was not able to pull any of that together. Now, Mr. Chapman is out of town. He too would have been here had he not been out of town on the meeting. He could not reschedule. So I think in schedule of everybody's interest, and I'm not gonna speak for Alderwoman Davis, but I found out about the meeting 2 days ago. What is today? Today is
Friday. We
Tuesday.
scheduled
Friday.
it Friday.
Yes, Friday, I'm sorry.
okay, but I thought the whole point was that we were gonna reschedule, so we can get in all the documents, and also bring in the people. We also found out about it Friday, because that's how it works at the Board of Aldermen. The chairs get to set their schedule, and therefore, then we have to, like, I don't set a lot of my appointments except on Mondays or Fridays or in the evenings, because chairs, I used to be a chair, so you get to set a schedule and people have to be there. So we found out Friday too. So it was not anything, but I thought the entire point was you want to come back with documents, which I got documents with April Ford Griffin's name on it, which is so funny because she wasn't even any place thought of. She might have been 5, 6 years old, so those were not good documents. But just to move on, I want to, and I will put in everybody's box, so I am a good researcher. So I went to find out about all of this because I was at the table before, and I do know not only with the airport but with Metrolink, we went through a lot of personal pain because these are black communities and people were not happy with what was going on, okay? But I went and pulled back, so this is why the city is in the middle of it and should respect other municipalities, is because the city of St. Louis purchased all the property out there. They formed a not-for-profit called the airport, okay? And they formed it as a not-for-profit, and then they passed a series of bond issues and stuff, and that is how the property was purchased. In Berkeley, in Robertson, which you don't even hear about anymore, in Kinloch, and we all remember Bridgeton mayor hated our guts, okay? And he was on TV every day talking about this. So you're not from St. Louis, I take it?
No,
Are you
I
from-
am. Well,
Okay, so do you
we're here.
remember back when we were doing all of this?
I do.
Okay, so that's why we are particularly of interest, because at first we purchased it, and I think we may have done, I gotta go back and I'm finished doing it to look at if we did eminent domain. But just on a fairness basis, that's why I would look back to giving it to Berkeley. Also, all of us sit at this table as Alder people. If anybody had done what the airport did to Berkeley and came in and didn't kind of talk to us about, oh, well, this is where we want to do this, we would be all insulted, okay? I see that the mayor of Kinloch has sent a letter saying, oh yeah, he approves of that. Well, I did take a tour through Kinloch. There's only about 200 people, I believe, out in Kinloch. The rest of it is ripe for farming. If he likes farming so much and they're Kinloch farmers, I would suggest that he get some land out in Kinloch, because there's plenty of it. You can do anything you want to out there. Anybody, I'll take you out on the tour myself. So why doesn't he just put them in his community? It's not that far away. In fact, parts of Kinloch and Berkeley across the street. So if I think it's so great to be in the 9th ward, why don't I just put it in the 1st ward if we're right across the street? So of course it's real easy for me to say that. So that's what I would like to say, is that have you approached the mayor? And I know that's not your responsibility, but I would say that if we want to make things great, since we already had a mayor who wants it, just have him find some land in Kinloch and put it there. How long were the squatters on the land that you removed them from? Do you know?
I don't know exact number of years. I know they've been there for several years.
Like 5, 7, 10?
Oh, more, I would say more than that.
Ever since I've been in Berkeley, and I moved there in '67.
They've been at that land?
Yes.
Oh, well then I
On
know.
both sides of the street.
So let me just tell you another little thing that people call squatter rights. It's called adverse possession. And adverse possession says you are open and notorious and in land and you're there, that under the law you can obtain a legal interest. So I might say that some of the reason that there's some concern about moving them off is that if the squatters got a lawyer, they may have some kind of legal interest if they've been there that long, okay? So that might be of concern to the city. I thought that we were talking about something a couple of years.
Ever since I've been there, I moved there in '67.
Okay, that's very interesting, okay? Let's see.
40 years.
Yeah,
plus.
most of the farmers I spoke with this summer told me they'd been there about 15 to 18 years.
That's still
I spoke
more
with
than,
this summer.
more than enough for adverse
Oh,
possession,
well, that's
okay?
40 years.
They might have been there, the current farmers might have been there, but they probably took it over from another farmer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Were they on both sides of the highway?
Both sides, no, both sides of Handley,
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah.
Now, we were told that there was some kind of appraisal of the property. Could we have a copy of that appraisal?
We can get that, yes.
Okay.
I wasn't asked to provide that, I apologize, but I will.
No problem. Why are we giving the farmers so much deference over another municipality? I don't understand that. I am just confused. I saw when Jackie Joyner Kersey went down and they planted some, maybe in your ward or your ward, but the people who I talked to, when they put all that corn, I saw the people on TV very upset because that felt that's dangerous, and people always think that it's a great idea to put things in your community. I always get people who want to put liquor in my community, and then when I ask them, well, where do you live? Oh, I live in Northwoods. Well, why don't you put it in Northwoods? Oh no, we don't want it there. So I might say that that is very insensitive of us that we think it's okay to put stuff in Berkeley and not have talked to the elected officials. I find that offensive, and I think all of us would find that offensive, okay? And so, just because you have the land is still not any reason, because the airport is not a private citizen like somebody else, not to be talking to the elected officials. I find that very offensive, and I'm not the mayor. I find it offensive. I've known Ted for a number of years, and I think all of us would expect if they were coming to the 9th, 25th, 4th, 3rd, 27th, 19th, and 1st, that you talk with us about something like that. That would get a giant no from me if you had done it that
Could I
way.
ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Is that property zoned for farming?
It is not.
Oh, we would probably wouldn't even zone it for farming then. Under those circumstances, it would have to come to us, to go through a special, planning and zoning and issue a special,
And you all can say no.
yeah, we good.
And I would if I were you.
I'm supportive of the farmers.
Right.
What I'm not supportive of is North Park purchasing this land. We should have the right to purchase from the city of Berkeley.
And my next question to you is, so I keep hearing that the farmers, and they're called farmers and they're called squatters. So whatever they are, that they chose this plot of land. How did they choose this plot of land? So, because they were someplace else, how did they choose this plot of land?
Again, in my conversations with them, I do think that there were a couple of farmers who were already farming on the North Park property, and they went over to look at it and they liked what they saw. So to my understanding, and I was not over to look at the North Park property that butts up to the piece that we would be looking at the sale of, but there were some farmers on there, and that they liked that piece of property, they liked the quality of the soil, and they liked where it was, so.
And when you say farming on the North Park property, the part that was the airport or the part that was Northport?
North Park, ma'am.
Okay. I would say, and Mr. Mayor, I would love to help you. I think we ought to research where North Park got that land in the first place, if they got it from something. Did they get this land from something that was airport land, or was
I
it?
would assume in the
All
past,
the,
it's,
all the
yes,
land
they
that you're
bought that
talking
from
about
the
around here,
airport
Alderwoman?
before my
Yes,
time,
I'm
yes.
positive that this was airport land at one time.
They purchased that through the intergovernmental committee.
I don't know how they oh, you mean that, did North Park purchase it through that commission?
Yeah.
I believe so, I can't answer that for certain.
Okay, and that's my next question, so thank you. I wanna, so when I went out to talk to the mayor, cause I went to meet with him, then I heard about this intergovernmental committee, which I kinda remember, cause when you've done this for a long time, kinda forget some of the things. Can you refresh my memory about the intergovernmental committee?
Through the chair, I cannot. I only know that it existed, I was not a part of that process or a part of the office that worked with them.
Do you know what exactly it is at all?
No, I only know that they were an entity formed and that they owned the property briefly before North Park, but I'm not sure how the whole entire transaction took place. I don't know any details.
That was prior to my time as well.
They was established, with the entities, the county, the city, the state, and they're
Right.
responsible for developing North
I
Park.
kinda remember that,
And
right?
they got together, and they're the ones selected North Park
Okay,
as a developer.
okay. Did you have input on this when they were?
I'm assuming back then they had.
Yeah, but I'm talking about
I'm
Berkeley.
sure,
I know
I'm
you
sure
know.
because
Okay.
Berkeley has two members on that committee.
Okay, Berkeley has, all right.
Yes.
So then if it had, but is that still functioning?
Yes.
We have not sold, since in my tenure, we have not sold a piece of property through that entity. in my tenure.
Right, it only function when there's activity, so it
But,
doesn't.
so the property would have been sold to North Park a long time ago? When Captain, Griggs was here, maybe?
Well, I've been here 5 years, there was a
Right.
director prior to me, but
But yeah, but Captain Griggs was the big stick in the room when we were doing a lot of this. Okay. Have we asked the mayor of Kinloch if he was interested in having the farmers who are his, since they're called the Kinloch farmers, come to him and farm there? And if not, why not?
well, again, the property, the land, North Park came to me asking me to buy 2.5 slivers to be able to do this. Through the conversations with them, it was my understanding that they had been working with the individuals in Berkeley. And no, I did not go to meet with the mayor about that. They had produced paperwork that they said they had been working. Again, we were looking at an entity of airport property being sold to another entity, so we didn't have a need to go talk to Berkeley. I mean, I understand the concerns and certainly we're open to listening to them, but there was not.
Well, my concern is more because the city got it in the first place, okay? I've had to use eminent domain once down here as an alderperson. I don't like it, but I've had to use it. That's where the Snooks sits. It's not something, and I worked with them people for the longest. If Snooks had not used all of that land, my first thing would be to try to get it back to whatever I got it from. So since the city, it wasn't, oh, we just individually did something. The city bought this land, and I will provide you with the ordinance, because it was back in when they decided to set this up. That then, to me, makes it our responsibility. If we want to be dealt with as a city, I want to deal with other people as a city. If I want people to respect me as an elected official, then I want to respect other elected officials. And that's something that they want back in their control. That's where I'm going. I would not, it's not that I'm opposed to farmers. My family comes from farming. But I don't have a right to decide I want to be in, I like in the middle of Clayton. I couldn't see us saying, well, we're going to put this in the middle of Clayton. No way they would put up with that. We would deal with Clayton's political structure. And so for me, we have to deal with Berkeley's political structure, because as we would ask people to deal with ours. I have no further questions. And I will provide everybody with the ordinance. And if anybody has questions, I would ask them, go out there. I'm sure that all the mayor, they would take you on a ride and you would get to see this for yourself. And then you would know there's no reason for the Kinloch farmers not to go to Kinloch and farm. And I'm sure that the land is fertile in Kinloch and you can farm in Kinloch because it's right across the street from each other, much of it. No further questions.
Okay, I'm not sure if anybody else has any additional questions after the go around. You do, Alderman Moore?
Yeah.
Go right ahead, sir.
Mr. Mayor, does Berkeley have enough land, like 10 acres, that they can give the farmers?
No.
You don't have that. Do you have a relationship with Kinloch where Kinloch can give them 10 acres of land where they can farm?
I don't think we have that type of relationship. We're in Florida, in Lucknow. We haven't. I wasn't aware that they were trying to identify an area to replace the farmers. I wasn't even aware of that.
So you would like to have that acreage back where the farmers are moving from, right?
They're moving from Kinloch, so I don't want that acreage. I want the acres where they're moving to.
Oh,
That's in Berkeley.
That's in Berkeley.
okay. You're not anti-farmers?
Oh, no. I remember my grandmother's talking about sharecropping. How could I be against that?
That's right.
Okay. So you want the land where they're moving to?
Yes, I want the land that they're proposing in Bill 232.
Okay, they used to belong to Berkeley.
Used to be in the city of Berkeley, owned by owners. Okay, and as the years passed, then the airport, which is City of St. Louis, purchased it for airport expansion. And since they decided not to go east with the expansion and went west into Bridgeton, then the land became available for development. And that's when the land was given to the airport had it. And then the airport gave it to an intergovernmental committee, which sold it to North Park. All except this piece. We sold some land also to North Park.
Right.
Okay? But we wasn't aware that this piece right here where they decided not to develop was vacant or available. And if we would have had the right to first offer, we would have purchased it without a doubt.
And you want that, you would like to have that?
I would like to have the right to purchase it. And and we're in a position to pay $150.
Okay. That's my question, Madam Chairperson.
All right, any other questions? Before I ask both of you all to give a closing statement, I'd like to just put on the record a few things that came out of the questions that were asked. The first thing is that I think we identified through all the questions and everything that it's not an appropriate role for the airport authority to negotiate on behalf of the farmers. That's not their job. The only role they have is selling the property. They have no other responsibility here because that's not the role that the airport should play. We do know that based on everything that has been said, that the federal laws were in place to protect the airport with squatters' rights, but in the midst of all of that, we don't have any way as a governmental body to provide anything for them at this point to be farmers, not the city of St. Louis. And that was not why this bill was written in the first place. This bill was written because it was a contract agreement to sell a piece of property between the airport and another private entity. We also know that common practice with the city of St. Louis, as we have paid attention for all of us on the various committees that we serve on, that when we're dealing with property, we normally do quick claim here with the city of St. Louis. We just had 3 parcels that went through various entities for different development projects that we owned, and we use quick claim, so it's not unfamiliar to us. We also know that this property was bought from individuals in the past. The property was not bought from the city of Berkeley, and it was bought under that noise ordinance process that they were taking care of. And I want to say that might have even been in the early 90s when all that took place, if I'm not mistaken. But again, that's neither here nor there. What we do know now after further discovery is that the representative from the federal government, who is our director from the airport authority, has an appropriate process that she brought forward. But in the light of everything else that we have discovered, we have some questions and concerns, most especially because the Berkeley mayor is sitting here and has some concerns as well. And we would like to respect his concerns. As we move forward with this, I think that it would not be appropriate to have a vote today. I think it would be appropriate for the director to go back to the North Park entity, explain the position that is here. I think it would be appropriate for the mayor of Berkeley to have a further conversation with you on process and procedure for the interest that you have. I think that also it is very appropriate that dealing with the societal part of this, the domestic side of this, as far as the farmers are concerned, that some entity, whether it's Berkeley or Kenlock, really gets close to this, and I would hate to see them just left out here with nothing. And I'm not sure how that's gonna work out. Again, that's not the airport director's responsibility to take care of where the farmers are relocated to. So I would hope that, you would be able to help out with that. We don't have any other responsibility on this committee other than looking at this bill and looking at how this bill could be as responsible as possible as far as the city of St. Louis is concerned. I think that we have definitely gotten a lot of additional information that has formed different opinions about this bill, and I would ask the airport director to understand that and to take this opportunity to go back and let's try to figure this out. Mr. Mayor, I really appreciate you coming forward.
Thank you.
I know that you have thing I know about you is how responsible you are on behalf of your citizenry, whether you were a state rep or the mayor or the committee man. So, you've always, done a great job as far as I know, and I know that you will have your city's best interests at heart. But I do, want to ask again that we don't let the farmers become a part of, a situation that's complicated. I would hope that they will be protected in all of this. There's a lot of people's livelihood involved here. And you've already indicated that they have already moved to the North Park site, and they're currently farming on that site. Now, I'm sure based on this negotiation changing, they may not be able to stay there. And that's why I'm asking if you would please help and make sure that they're taken care of. And probably a lot of them are your residents too as well.
They're not all Kenmore.
I really don't know.
They are, you don't know,
I
I don't know
really know
either.
where they reside,
Okay, we don't know that, but in any,
but I do
but
know.
in any interest, they're human beings and we
Yes.
want to protect them. Yes, sir. So, Mr. Mayor, I'm gonna ask you to give a closing statement first, and then I'll ask the airport director.
First of all, I thank you for allowing me to address the committee. Second, I can assure you the city of Berkeley's position is, if the land is returned to the city of Berkeley, we will provide an area for the farmers. In addition, we will provide an area to replace Evans Lanes Park. In other words, we have an obligation to the state to replace that North Park we build Express Scripts on. And so my position is very clear. Return this land to Berkeley. We will purchase it at the fair market value, and we will allow the farmers to continue to reside and continue to do the things they were doing in Kinloch. So again, thank you for allowing
Thank
me
you so much.
to address your
All right,
issues.
Director.
And thank you, Chairperson Davis, Chairwoman Davis. And we'll be happy to come back and work with you and talk with North Park about that. The only thing I would like to reiterate is that this is 2.5 acres. This is a small piece of the property, so it would not be large enough for the park, nor would it be large enough to accommodate the existing farmers. So I can only speak as to the airport, 2.5 acres. I can't speak to the broader land that's owned obviously by a different entity.
Well, that is true. They're currently not even on that,
That's
what we're talking
correct.
about selling.
Correct.
That's another thing that we totally missed.
Right,
They've actually located them on some other land that they already own.
correct.
So this 2.5 has nothing to do with that. So
It's adjacent to theirs.
It's adjacent to it.
Right, and their goal was
Right,
to expand
right,
it and bring it into
right.
that. But just so everyone's aware,
Yeah.
the 2.5 acres, if we sell directly to the city of Berkeley, could not accommodate
No,
the farmers today in
No,
its
nor
entirety,
park.
nor could it accommodate the park.
no.
Is there additional land over there that
It is, I believe, Abdul bought it.
If there is additional land over there,
how much?
another, with the current land that North Park has, there's 3.3 acres already that are there. The additional 2.5 would be an area of 5.5,
Yeah.
5.7.
Yeah, I think basically what they were gonna do is just switch, because they were gonna put them on the land they already owned. And then their development could go over on the other side, and that would have accommodated them. So that's an unfortunate thing. This had nothing to do with any of that. It's really unfortunate. So,
But that's it, I'd be happy to come back and talk to North Park to see
Right.
if we can make the sale directly
Okay.
to
yeah,
the city of Berkeley, and we'll go through the process
okay.
and look at that.
That's it. Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, I would request that they put a clause in the covenant that would protect the future of the farmers and for later on, so that way, what the mayor was talking about the rights of refusal and all that, that they put those type of clauses in these covenants, in these documents, in order to protect the future of the farmers and of Berkeley and even the airport.
Well, that would be left up to that government body, with the land that they own. Currently, the farmers are on land that is owned by North Park. That's where they are at this moment. And so, I don't know how we could go about. doing
Whenever
that.
it's finalized,
Okay,
that protection should be in there for everyone.
Okay, well, as we just stated, the 2.5 that Berkeley is proposing to buy is not enough land for the farmers. And so I'm not sure what you want us to refer for them to do.
Whenever the land grab or the land deeding or whatever, just have that in that covenant, that is, someone has protection.
Alderman Moore, I don't think we as the airport are allowed to demand that in the sale of property that we have. I don't think that we, I checked.
But it's
our
not in
attorney's
what's
one.
already, what we're talking about now, what the mayor has said is that there is a first rights of refusal somewhere that no one can bring up, and that should be in that covenant.
We cannot put a right of refusal on the property of land that the airport sells, sir.
No. No.
Doesn't necessarily have to be a right of refusal, just some protective clause.
But when you,
Why don't we just call it a Kinloch Mayor? I'll call it.
I'm listening.
I would suggest that we leave the sale and the contract and the conditions up to this government body that is purchasing.
I
That's
want
how
no
we
part
all
of
got
it.
all messy as it is.
I want no part of it, just a suggestion.
Yes, I think we
got
should
enough on my
leave that
plate.
up to that government body.
Mhm.
As the mayor started off his conversation, he is the mayor, he has a council.
Right.
And let that government body make their decisions for how they wanna construct their contract.
Just a suggestion.
Okay?
that.
All right. Anything else? All right. Well, I thank you again for coming. I thank both of you. I think you can move forward now with some expectations that will make everybody happy. And if there's nothing else, I'd like to adjourn this meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.